every single thing I've read said there's no broken bones except for the chest, which I was aware of,
No, yeah,
which is
that's
from
true.
CPR.
No broken bones were discovered, but they didn't do an X-ray.
I've never heard that before.
No, I know. I'm not surprised. I mean, it's a lot of questions that come up in this case. It's endless. You can discuss
I
it for
know, but I've
days, right?
proved
So,
you wrong on some
you know,
points too. So, I mean,
yeah,
fair. We've gotta be able to
yeah. No, I'm
challenge
not faulting you for
theories.
not knowing that. I'm not. I don't. Please don't take it that way. I mean,
Why didn't they bring
so
it up in court? They X-rayed him and I mean, I don't understand.
because they didn't X-ray him, and and it's too late now. So, and they don't typically do X-rays in the United States. So there was nothing unusual about it. And they didn't have at the time a reason to do it. They weren't anticipating this conspiracy theory. So it's just not what they did. And it's just not what they do in any case in the United States. I wish they did, because I bet that they would find fissures in that elbow, fractures, but they weren't the type, that it wasn't the kind of thing you could tell by physically examining the body.
Yeah, I will have to go and look up that. I would
Yeah.
challenge you on that one.
No, I'm 100% sure about that. But I understand where you're taking it, because the medical examiner would have said no broken bones were found or something to that effect. And that's true, but they didn't x-ray it.
Show me how you
So,
know they did an X-ray, and that's what I'd like to see.
all right. I mean, they just don't. You can Google this. They don't x-ray in the United States, as part of autopsies. They just don't.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll have to revisit that one. I
Um,
don't believe that.
let me try. I don't know. Do you use Bing at all, the search engine?
No.
There's a great research tool on here. It's connected to Chat GPT. It's called Copilot, and it's great even for stuff that you already know but you forgot. Obviously, anything with Chat GPT or any sort, AI, you have to be a little careful. But let's see. Let me just ask: do they X-ray bodies in autopsies in the
I would think that would
U.S.?
be case by case. I don't think you can blanket statement that either.
Yeah. So we'll see what they say. You might be right. Maybe they say sometimes. Let's see what they say here.
But
Hey there, welcome to another deep dive. You know how much we love digging into those fascinating, sometimes overlooked details? And today we've got a case study that's got some real head scratchers. We're talking about the nitty-gritty of autopsies, specifically whether X-rays are always part of the procedure. It's about to get intriguingly specific.
What's so compelling about this case study is that it forces us to confront assumptions. Take the X-ray debate, for example. It seems like a simple question, but there's actually no universal answer. The decision to use X-rays during an autopsy in the U.S. isn't as cut and dried as some might think.
Right, in the source material, one person stated confidently that X-rays aren't standard practice, and someone else was practically amazed. I have to admit, my ears perked up too. So, what are the deciding factors? Is it like a judgment call?
It's more nuanced than a single judgment call. Imagine a scenario where the cause of death seems straightforward, like a gunshot wound with a clear trajectory. X-rays might seem redundant there, right? But what if the circumstances are murkier, say a suspected poisoning or a death with no visible injuries? Then, X-rays could be crucial in revealing hidden fractures, bone abnormalities, or even ingested toxins.
That makes sense. It's like you wouldn't use a metal detector to find a lost dog, but it's indispensable if you've dropped your wedding ring on the beach. The tool depends on the situation.
Precisely. And that's just one layer of the onion. The age of the deceased, their medical history, even the specific focus of the legal investigation, those can all influence the decision to utilize X-rays.
This really highlights something we always emphasize, right?
Yeah.
Information in isolation can be misleading. It's all about context.
Absolutely. Just imagine trying to interpret the results of an autopsy without knowing whether X-rays were used or why they weren't. It'd be like trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing.
If you're holding an object like this pen and I get struck by something hard enough to launch me 20 feet, that pen goes with me. And even if I let go halfway there, that pen has the exact same momentum as my body does. So it's going to end up with me.
Mr. Plevin, this question you sent in, well, it really got us thinking.
It is a curious one.
To think a Sharpie, a regular old Sharpie, could have the same momentum as, well, a person.
Just because they happen to be holding it.
Right. At the exact moment, a car. Well,
Physics can be a wild ride.
it really can. And I have a feeling this deep dive is going to be particularly interesting.
Absolutely. Momentum is one of those concepts that seems simple on the surface.
Just moving, it's got momentum, right?
Sure, but when we start to peel back the layers and think about the implications, it can lead to some head-scratching moments, like Mr. Plevin's question.
Exactly. So to recap, Mr. Plevin, you were wondering if you're holding this Sharpie and hypothetically get hit by a car.
Hopefully never happening, of course.
Of course, of course. But purely for the sake of physics, let's say it happens. You're thinking both you and D the pen would go flying the same distance.
Because at that split second of impact, you're thinking they have the same momentum.
Right. The car hits, transfers the same amount of momentum to both, and off they go. In perfect unison. Or maybe not.
Let's dive into that, shall we?
Please, break it down for us.
Okay, so when we talk about momentum in physics, we're essentially talking about mass in motion. It's as simple as how much something weighs multiplied by how fast it's going.
Okay, so something heavy moving fast has a lot of momentum.
Exactly. Think about a bowling ball compared to a tennis ball. Imagine rolling both at the same speed.
I'm already wincing thinking about that bowling ball.
Right. Even at the same speed, that bowling ball packs a much bigger punch because it's got way more mass, therefore more momentum.
So a bowling ball to the shins is far more memorable than a tennis ball.
You could say that.
Okay, I'm with you on the bowling ball analogy, but how does this apply to, Mr. Plevin and this, dare I say, rather insignificant Sharpie?
This is where the intrigue and Mr. Plevin's initial intuition begins to unravel a bit. You see, even though he's holding the pen when the, let's say, hypothetical car makes contact, the momentum transfer isn't some instantaneous, even distribution.
Oh, it's not like, boom, everything gets the same amount of momentum all at once.
Not quite. It's more like, imagine the force of the car as a ripple spreading through water.
Okay, I like where this is going.
The Sharpie, being so light, is like a tiny leaf floating on the surface.
Easily pushed around.
Precisely. The ripple, the force of the car, comes along, and that little leaf goes flying. Now, Mr. Plevin, on the other hand, he's more like a boulder deeper in the water.
So he's not going to just skim along the surface.
Not quite. The ripple, the force, might make him move. It might even be quite a jolt. But it's going to take a lot more to move that boulder the same distance as that tiny leaf.
Uh-huh. So even though both the pen and Mr. Plevin are hit by that initial force because of their size, their mass, they react entirely differently. It's not as simple as whatever's in your hand also goes flying at the same speed.
Exactly. The momentum transfer depends on much more than just what you're holding at that moment. It's about how that force interacts with the object's unique properties.
It's like how a sail catches the wind and a rock just sits there, right?
You've got it. The shape of the object, its surface area, how much it resists the air pushing back against it. All these factors play a role.
So, Mr. Plevin, next time you're holding something and a force, hopefully not a car, comes into play, remember, it's not just about what you're holding, but what that thing is.
That, to me, is the really fascinating part. Momentum isn't just about the initial force. It's about the interplay of forces.
So then that begs the question.
What does determine how far something will actually travel when a force acts upon it?
I guess that's a whole other deep dive for another time.
Indeed. But something for all of us to ponder.
Mr. Plevin, thank you for such a thought-provoking question. You really send us down a rabbit hole of physics. Until next time, keep those questions coming.
And keep those brains curious.